Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something I think a lot of you will find really useful and honestly pretty enjoyable, too. We're looking at sources that talk about using movies and TV shows to really boost your English skills.
That's right. It's something people often do anyway, watch things in English. But the question is, how do you make it effective for learning?
Exactly. Because lots of learners, especially once you're past the absolute beginner phase, find that understanding, real fast spoken English. It's tough.
It really is. You might be watching with subtitles, you're following the plot, picking up a word here and there, but you still feel like you're missing something. Like you can't quite catch the rhythm, the speed, how people actually sound.
Yeah, that gap. The gap between classroom English and, well, English in the wild, on screen.
That's the perfect way to put it.
So our deep dive today, using these really helpful sources we've got, is all about closing that gap. We're going to unpack a kind of system, a method, for turning that screen time into active learning.
Yeah, moving from passive watching to actively training your ears, absorbing vocabulary naturally in context, and even working on your pronunciation.
Okay, so it's not just watch more TV.
Definitely not. The sources lay out a clearer process. It's less about just what to watch, so we will cover that, and much more about how you engage with it, how you actively use it.
Right. So everyone get ready. Here's what we're aiming for in this deep dive, based on the material. First up, why choosing the right kind of show or movie for your level is so important. It's like the foundation.
Absolutely crucial.
Second, we'll get into the specifics, actual techniques you can use to train your ears to understand that fast, natural speech, the kind where words seem to blend together.
The connected speech.
Yeah, that stuff. Third, subtitles, how to use them strategically, so they help you learn instead of just being a crush you always lean on.
A very common trap, that one.
And finally, we'll explore how you can use movies and shows to practice your speaking. Actually, improve how you sound.
So by the end of this, you should have a really practical toolkit. You'll know how to pick your content better, and you'll have specific exercises to turn watching into focused, effective practice. Practice that actually gets results.
Okay, sounds great. Let's get into it then. Time to make that streaming habit work for your English.
Let's do it.
So the sources really hammer this point home first. Choosing the right stuff to watch is step one. You can't just pick any random movie, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, imagine you love, say, complex legal dramas with tons of jargon, but you're still at an intermediate level. You'll just be completely lost.
Right. You'll spend the whole time just trying to figure out what's happening in the story, let alone learning the language.
Precisely. If it's way too difficult, you might understand maybe 10 or 20%, even with subtitles on. All your mental energy goes into just basic comprehension, not noticing grammar or pronunciation. It quickly becomes frustrating, demoralizing even. You'll probably just give up.
Yeah, I can see that. And the flip side is also true, isn't it, if it's too easy?
Exactly. If you're quite advanced and you decide to watch, I don't know, a show for very young children, you'll understand everything instantly.
Okay.
Which feels good for a minute, maybe, but there's no challenge. You're not encountering new words, you're not hearing complex sentences or faster speech. You're stuck in your comfort zone, and learning doesn't happen there. You need that stretch.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
That's the term one source uses, the perfect balance. You need content that's understandable enough so you can follow what's going on, get the context.
But challenging enough that it pushes you a bit.
Exactly. Challenging enough to expose you to new vocabulary, faster ways of speaking, maybe more complex grammar than you're used to. That's where the growth happens.
Okay, so how do we find this perfect balance? The sources give some pointers based on level. Let's start with beginners. What should someone who's just starting out look for?
For beginners, the key things are clarity and context. You want shows or movies where people speak relatively clearly and not too fast. Simple sentence structures help too. And crucially, strong visual support.
Visual support, you mean like seeing what's happening?
Yes, exactly. Animation is fantastic for this. Think about Disney or Pixar movies, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Frozen, things like that.
Why animation specifically?
Well, the visuals provide so much context. You see the characters' exaggerated expressions, happy, sad, scared. You see their actions very clearly. If a character points and says, "Look over there," you see exactly what they're pointing at.
I see. So even if you don't know all the words, the picture helps you guess the meaning.
Precisely. Like in my earlier example, if a character yells, "Watch out," and you see something about to fall on them, you understand the warning immediately from the visual, even if the phrase itself is new. It scaffolds your understanding.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What else works for beginners?
Sitcoms focusing on everyday life can be good too. Things like Friends or maybe Modern Family. While they're for adults, the conversations often revolve around common themes: relationships, work, making plans, family stuff.
Right, stuff you might actually talk about.
Yes, and the vocabulary tends to be pretty high frequency, the kind of words you use all the time. Plus, sitcom episodes are usually short, maybe 20, 25 minutes, less intimidating than a 2-hour movie.
Good point. Manageable chunks.
And don't discount shows made for very young native-speaking children, something like Peppa Pig or Bluey.
Really, even for adult learners.
Absolutely, especially for true beginners. Think about it. These shows are designed to teach language from the ground up. The vocabulary is super simple and gets repeated a lot. The sentences are short and clear. The themes are very concrete: playing games, eating, family activities.
Okay.
It might feel a bit basic, but it's incredibly effective for tuning your ear into the fundamental sounds, rhythms, and basic sentence patterns of English. It builds that core auditory recognition.
So for beginners, clear speech, simple sentences, lots of visual context. Animations, some sitcoms, maybe even kids shows.
Got it. What about intermediate learners? People who have the basics down but struggle with, faster, more natural conversations. Intermediate learners are ready for a bit more complexity. They can handle more natural dialogue speed and a wider range of vocabulary, but they still benefit from relatable themes and clear contexts. Content shouldn't be too specialized or abstract yet.
So what kind of shows fit that bill?
TV dramas that feature a lot of natural conversation are good. Things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Office.
Ah, okay. Workplace comedies, sort of.
Yeah, or dramas with strong ensemble casts. You hear characters interacting in ways that feel authentic. They hesitate, they interrupt each other sometimes. They use contractions and common idioms. It mirrors how people really talk in, say, an office or among friends.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a good one. It's fast-paced and funny, which keeps you watching, but the banter feels quite real, doesn't it? Even with the silliness.
Exactly. You get exposed to the flow and rhythm of natural conversation. Light comedies in general often work well too, like The Big Bang Theory or How I Met Your Mother. With something like The Big Bang Theory, okay, there's some science vocabulary, but the core of the show is relationships, friendships, everyday problems. The language is more complex than beginner stuff, with more phrasal verbs and varied grammar, but it's usually not overwhelmingly difficult.
And the sources also mentioned reality shows, like cooking competitions or something. That surprised me a bit.
Yeah, things like MasterChef or The Great British Bake Off. It seems odd, maybe, but they're actually great for intermediate learners.
Why is that?
Because a lot of the language is unscripted and spontaneous. People are reacting in the moment. They're describing what they're doing. Okay, now I'm whisking the eggs, or I need to fold this in gently. They're expressing genuine frustration. Oh, no, it didn't rise.
Ah, okay. Real reactions.
Yes, and giving instructions, offering opinions, that tastes amazing, or I think it needs more salt. Crucially, the context is usually crystal clear because you can see what they're doing: cooking, baking, building, whatever the challenge is.
So the visuals anchor the meaning, even if the speech is fast or people talk over each other sometimes.
Exactly. You get authentic, unplanned speech patterns, emotional language, practical instructions, all supported by strong visual cues. It's a great window into how people use language naturally under pressure or when focused on a task.
Okay, that makes sense. Natural speech, clear context, good for intermediate. So finally, what about advanced learners? People who are already pretty comfortable but want to push themselves, understand everything, handle complexity.
Advanced learners really need to seek out challenges. They need content that stretches their vocabulary, forces them to follow complex arguments or narratives, and exposes them to the full speed and nuance of native speech.
So no more comfort zone.
Pretty much. Movies known for fast-paced, realistic, and often overlapping dialogue are excellent. Think about films like Inception or The Social Network, or say Quentin Tarantino movies often have very stylized but rapid-fire dialogue.
The Social Network is notorious for that, isn't it? The dialogue is incredibly dense and fast.
It is. It's a real workout for your listening comprehension. You have to process information very quickly. Characters interrupt, they might mumble, they use sophisticated vocabulary, they discuss complex ideas without slowing down. It forces you to operate at a higher processing speed.
Okay. What else challenges advanced learners?
News broadcasts and documentaries are very valuable. Sources like BBC News or watching TED Talks.
Why those specifically?
They tend to use more formal language, structured arguments, precise vocabulary. You get exposed to language related to current events, science, politics, history, a huge range of topics. The speech is usually clear, but it's delivered at a natural native pace and often uses complex sentence structures, more like written academic language spoken aloud.
And complex TV dramas. The sources mention things like Breaking Bad or Sherlock.
Yes, shows like those often have intricate plots, morally gray characters, and dialogue that's heavy with subtext, metaphors, irony, and sophisticated language.
You have to read between the lines a bit.
Exactly. The conversations can be philosophical, technical, or involve really subtle emotional manipulation. Understanding requires not just knowing the words, but grasping the nuances, the implications, the unspoken meanings. It really hones your ability to follow detailed arguments and appreciate subtlety in language.
Okay, so that's a helpful guide based on level, but
Yeah.
how do you know for sure if a specific show you're eyeing up is actually in that perfect balance zone for you, personally?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the sources offer a very practical way to check a kind of quick test.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Pick a scene from the show or movie you're considering, just a typical conversational scene, maybe a minute or two long. Watch that short segment without any subtitles at all. Just listen.
Yeah.
Now, estimate how much of the dialogue you understood just by listening. If you feel you caught roughly 50% to 70% of what was said, then it's probably at a good level for you to learn effectively.
50 to 70%.
Okay.
That's the magic window.
That seems to be the sweet spot, according to the source. If you understand much less than 50%, say only 20 or 30%, it's likely too hard right now. You'll probably get frustrated, as we said. It's just too much effort for too little gain at this point.
And if you understand more, like 80, 90, 100%.
Then it's probably too easy. You're not being challenged enough. You won't encounter enough new language or difficult listening situations to really push your skills forward. You need that bit of struggle, that gap in understanding.
So the ideal situation is you can follow the main plot points, get the gist of the conversation, but there's still a good chunk, that 30 to 50%, that makes you think, what did they say there? Or I didn't quite catch that word.
Exactly. That's the zone for active learning. You have enough context to stay afloat and make educated guesses, but enough unknown material to force your brain to work, to pay close attention, to actively try and decipher the sounds. That's where the real improvement happens.
Okay, that's a really useful rule of thumb. The 50-70% test without subtitles. So step 1, choose wisely. Now, once you've found your perfectly challenging show, how do you use it to actually get better at understanding that fast, connected, sometimes mumbled English?
Right. This is where we get into the specific ear training techniques mentioned in the sources. Because, as you said, the biggest hurdle often isn't not knowing the words themselves.
It's recognizing them when they're all squished together.
Exactly. When they're spoken at speed with sounds reduced or linked, like your example going to becoming gonna, or maybe what are you doing, sounding like what you doing, your ear needs to be trained to pick up on these transformations.
Because my English textbook definitely didn't say, what you doing?
Precisely. Textbooks often give you the very clear, separated word pronunciation. Real life isn't like that. So the method proposed is a focused 3-step listening exercise. You do it with very short clips.
Okay, short clips. How short?
Really short, like 10 to 15 seconds max.
Wow, okay. Very focused then. What are the 3 steps?
Step 1. Take your 10-15-second clip and listen to it without any subtitles. Just listen. The only goal here is pure exposure to the raw sound. Don't panic if you understand almost nothing. Don't worry if you only catch 1 or 2 words. Just let the natural speed and pronunciation wash over you.
So first listen. No pressure. Just absorb the sound, like a baseline check.
Correct. Just experience it unfiltered. Then, step 2. Play that exact same 10-15-second clip again, but this time turn on the English subtitles.
Okay. Now I get to see what they actually said.
Yes. And this is the crucial analysis step. As you listen and read simultaneously, your job is to actively notice the connections. How do the sounds you're hearing match up with the words you're seeing?
This is where I spot the gonna and see going to written down.
Exactly. Or you hear kinda and see kind of. You hear what dea and see what do you. You notice sounds getting dropped, like the internet often disappears in casual speech. You see how the end of one word links smoothly to the start of the next? Your brain starts mapping the messy sounds of real speech onto the clean written form.
It's like decoding the secret language of native speakers.
In a way, yes. You're becoming consciously aware of these patterns, the reductions, the linkages, the dropped sounds. You can pause here, replay a tiny bit, really focus on how a specific phrase was pronounced compared to how it's written. This step is all about building that conscious understanding.
Okay, makes sense. Step 1, listen raw. Step 2, listen with English subtitles to see the connection. What's next?
Step 3, listen to the same clip one more time, but turn the subtitles O off F again.
Back to just listening.
Yes, but now your brain has the knowledge from step 2. You've seen the connections, you've identified the tricky parts. So this third listen is about trying to hear those words and patterns without the visual aid. You should find you understand significantly more this time than you did in step 1.
So the first listen is the challenge. The second provides the answers and explanation, and the third is like a test to see if you've learned it.
That's a great way to think about it. Consolidates the learning. And the sources strongly recommend repeating this whole 3-step cycle. Listen without, listen with, listen without again for the same short clip until you feel you understand most, maybe 80–90% of it just by listening.
Wow, okay. So repeat the cycle multiple times for just one 10-second clip.
If necessary, yes. It might take 5 repetitions, it might take 15, especially for a really fast or mumbled bit of dialogue. That repetition is what really drills the sound patterns into your auditory memory. It trains your ear, automatically almost, to recognize those forms when you hear them again.
That sounds intensive, but really targeted. Let's use that example the source gave. What do you want to do tonight? How would that work with 3 steps?
Okay. Step 1, you hear the clip. Maybe it sounds like a blur. What do you want to do tonight?
Yeah.
You might catch tonight, maybe do, but the rest is just fast noise. You feel a bit lost.
Okay, normal reaction for a learner.
Absolutely. Step 2, you listen again with the subtitle. What do you want to do tonight? Now you actively connect. You hear would-I and see. What do you? You hear wanna and see want to. Okay. You notice the rhythm, the te sounds linking or changing. Maybe you pause, listen just to what-a couple of times, comparing the sound to the words.
So you're dissecting it, matching sound to text.
Exactly. You're building that bridge in your mind. This sound means these words. Then, step 3, subtitles off again. You listen to what I wanted tonight. But this time, your brain isn't hearing noise. It's hearing, what do you want to do tonight? It can decode it much more easily because it's been shown the key.
And you keep doing that.
You keep doing that with different clips, different shows. Gradually, your ear becomes attuned to these common patterns of connected speech. You start to anticipate them. Understanding fast, natural English becomes less effortful, more automatic. It really does work wonders for your listening comprehension over time.
That 3-step method sounds powerful. Okay, so we've picked our show using the 50-70 rule. We're drilling down on short clips to train our ears. Now, let's talk more about subtitles in general. We know they can be a crutch. How do we use them smartly during, say, watching a whole episode or movie?
Right. The danger is passive reliance. If you always have subtitles on, especially in your native language, but even in English, you might end up just reading the screen. Your listening skills don't get the workout they need.
Because your brain takes the easy path. Reading is usually easier than decoding fast speech.
Exactly. So the goal isn't to never use subtitles, but to use them strategically as a learning tool to help you eventually not need them as much.
Okay, so how do the sources suggest we do that for longer viewing?
They propose a method that, again, involves a specific order, similar in principle to the short clip exercise, but applied more broadly.
What's the approach?
Step 1, watch the episode, or a significant chunk of it, with English subtitles turned on first.
Starting with them on. That feels counterintuitive again if the goal is to get rid of them.
It does, but think about the purpose of this first viewing. It's primarily about comprehension and vocabulary building. By having the English subtitles on, you connect the sounds you hear with the words you see. This is fantastic for picking up new words and phrases in context.
Okay. So if there's a new idiom or phrasal verb, I see it written, hear it spoken, and probably understand it from the scene.
Precisely. It helps you grasp the meaning, see the spelling, and hear the pronunciation all at once. It lowers the frustration level because you can actually follow what's happening and learn the language chunks being used. You're building a foundation of understanding for that specific content.
Got it. First watch. English subtitles on for comprehension, context, and vocab. And step 2.
Step 2. Watch the exact same episode or segment again fairly soon after, but this time, turn the subtitles O off F.
Okay, now the training wheels come off.
Exactly. Now you're challenging your ear. You already understand the plot. You've already encountered the key vocabulary from the first viewing. So now your brain's main task is to focus purely on the sounds and try to recognize the words and phrases you already know are there.
So this second viewing is the real listening practice. I know what they should be saying. Now I have to hear it.
Yes. You're forcing your auditory processing to do the work. It reinforces the sound-word connections you made in the first viewing, but without the visual support. It directly trains your ability to understand by ear alone.
And the sources mentioned adding shadowing in here somewhere too.
Yes, shadowing can be integrated beautifully here, often as a step 3, or perhaps done selectively during the second subtitle-free watch. Shadowing, just to recap, is listening to a phrase or sentence.
And immediately repeating it out loud, trying to copy the speaker exactly.
Exactly. Mimicking their pronunciation, their rhythm, their intonation, the whole musicality of the speech.
How does that fit into this watch-rewatch subtitle strategy?
Well, after you've watched with subtitles, step 1, and then without, step 2, you have a really good understanding of both the meaning and the sound of specific lines. So you can then pick a few key sentences or phrases that seemed interesting or maybe difficult and practice shadowing them.
So you're reinforcing the listening comprehension by actively trying to produce the same sounds.
Precisely. It closes the loop. You understand it, step 1. You practice recognizing it by ear, step 2. And then you practice saying it yourself. Shadowing. It makes the learning much more active and multisensory.
Let's use that example sentence again for shadowing. I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How would you practice that?
Okay, you'd hear the character say it in the show. Maybe they sound rushed or casual. I'll be there in 5 minutes. You'd pay attention to that specific sound. Then you pause. And you try to say it yourself, aiming for the same speed, the same stress, probably on 5, your turn. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Notice how I will becomes I'll. Notice how therein might link together slightly therein. You try to capture that flow. Maybe you listen again, repeat again, until it feels more natural coming out of your own mouth.
I can almost feel my mouth trying to make those shapes and speeds just hearing you describe it.
That's the idea. It's physical practice for your mouth and your ear, coordinating them. So this combination, watch with English subs, watch without, then selectively shadow key lines, is a really robust way to use subtitles as a scaffold that you gradually remove while also building your speaking skills.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. It's a much more active way to engage than just leaving subtitles on all the time. And it naturally leads us to that final section from the sources, actively using movies and TV to improve speaking.
Yes, moving beyond just taking language in input to practicing putting language output. The sources highlight 2 main exercises for this. The first is shadowing, which we've already touched upon.
Right, the close imitation.
Yes, and you can really focus on it as a speaking exercise in its own right. Find a short sentence you like or want to practice. Listen carefully. Then try to repeat it immediately, mimicking everything, the sounds, the speed, the ups and downs of the voice.
And you mentioned trying to speak at the same time as the character.
Yes, that's a more advanced version of shadowing. You play the line and try to speak right along with the character in sync. It's incredibly challenging because it forces you to process the incoming sound and produce the outgoing speech simultaneously at native speed.
Wow, that sounds like it would really push your fluency.
It absolutely does. Don't worry about getting it perfect, especially at first. The effort itself is beneficial. It trains your brain and your mouth to work together faster. It helps you internalize natural rhythms and intonation patterns, and it makes your pronunciation smoother over time. It's like high-intensity training for speaking.
Okay, shadowing is one key speaking exercise. What's the other one the sources mention?
The other is role play.
Role play, like acting out scenes?
Kind of, yes. You choose a short scene, maybe a conversation between 2 characters. You decide which character you're going to be. Then you play the scene, but every time your character speaks, you pause the video.
Okay.
And then you say that character's line out loud.
So I'm basically having a conversation with the TV.
Exactly. But the key here isn't just saying the words correctly. It's about trying to match the delivery. Pay attention to the character's tone. Are they supposed to sound angry, excited, sarcastic, bored? Try to capture that emotion in your voice, match their speed, their volume.
Why is matching the emotion and tone so important? Isn't getting the words right enough?
Well, think about communication. So much meaning is carried not just by what we say, but how we say it. Intonation, stress, tone. These things signal our attitude, our feelings, our intentions. Practicing role play helps you connect the language, the words and grammar to its actual use in a specific social or emotional moment.
Ah, so it's about using the language appropriately in context.
Precisely. It builds confidence in delivering lines naturally, in responding within a conversational flow. You practice not just forming sentences, but delivering them with the right feeling and timing for the situation. It helps bridge the gap between knowing English and actually using it effectively in interactions.
So shadowing helps with the mechanics, the sound, the rhythm, the fluency. And role play helps more with the application, the context, the emotion, the interaction.
That's a perfect summary. They complement each other really well. Shadowing fine-tunes your production. Role play builds your confidence and contextual use.
Let's try that quick shadowing example phrase again, the one for speaking practice.
Okay.
Long time no see.
Okay. Imagine you bump into an old friend. You'd say it cheerfully, probably quite quickly. Listen, hey, long time no see. Now, you pause and you try it. Really try to get that friendly, slightly surprised energy. Notice how long time no see almost becomes one single melodic chunk. Hey, long time no see.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound like 4 separate words when you say it like that. It flows.
And that's what shadowing helps you capture those natural phrase units, the flow of spoken language. Consistently doing both shadowing and role play, using material you're already watching, is a fantastic way to actively practice speaking, improve your accent, and just feel more comfortable using English.
This is brilliant. We've gone from passively watching to having a whole set of active listening and speaking strategies. It really does turn movie night into a potential learning powerhouse.
It demystifies the process, doesn't it? It gives you concrete things to do while you watch, things that directly address the common challenges learners face.
Absolutely. Okay, let's just quickly run through the main takeaways again, the key methods we've covered from these sources for using movies and TV shows effectively.
Okay, first, selection is key. Choose content matched to your level. Beginners. Aim for clarity, simple language, visual support animation like Toy Story, simple sitcoms like Friends, maybe even kids shows like Peppa Pig.
Right, intermediate learners.
Yeah.
Go for more natural dialogue, but still in relatable context, like dramas like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, comedies like The Big Bang Theory, even reality shows like MasterChef for that unscripted speech.
And advanced learners. Actively seek challenges. Fast-paced movies like Inception, News, or TED Talks for formal language, complex dramas like Sherlock for nuance and subtext, and always use that 50-70% comprehension test without subtitles as your guide.
Okay. Second, the ear training. Use the 3-step listening exercise on very short clips, 10-15 seconds. Step 1, listen without subtitles. Just expose yourself to the sound.
Step 2, listen again with English subtitles. Actively connect the sounds to the words. Spot connected speech like wanna or gonna. Analyze it.
Step 3, listen again without subtitles. Consolidate your understanding. Check if you can now hear the words and patterns you identified. And repeat that cycle until you get most of it.
Third, using subtitles smartly for longer viewing. Step 1. Watch with English subtitles. First, focus on comprehension, context, and learning new vocabulary.
Step 2. Watch the same thing again without subtitles. Force your brain to rely on listening alone, reinforcing recognition.
Step 3. Integrate shadowing. Pick key lines after watching. Listen, pause, and repeat them out loud, mimicking pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation.
And fourth, dedicated speaking practice. Use shadowing deliberately. Pick sentences, listen, and imitate exactly, maybe even trying to speak simultaneously with the character to boost fluency and accent.
And use role play. Choose a scene, pick a character, pause after their lines, and deliver them yourself, focusing on matching the tone, emotion, and context. Builds conversational confidence.
Fantastic. That's a really clear, actionable framework. Not just vague advice, but specific techniques.
And to help you put this into action immediately, we've got a challenge task for you, based directly on the source recommendations.
Yes. Okay, here is your deep dive challenge task. First, step 1. Find a very short clip, just 10 or 15 seconds from an English movie or TV show that you think is at the right level for you. Use that 50-70% rule to check. Make it a clip with some spoken dialogue, maybe something funny or dramatic, or just a simple exchange.
Okay, step 2. Take that specific clip and do the 3-step listening exercise. Listen once without any subtitles. Listen again with the English subtitles, really paying attention to how the words sound versus how they're written. Then listen a final time without subtitles. Notice how much your understanding improves just through that focused process.
And step 3. From that same short clip, choose just one sentence. Just one. Practice shadowing that single sentence for a few minutes. Listen to the character say it, pause, and repeat it out loud. Really try to copy their exact sound, their speed, their rhythm, the feeling behind the words.
And we genuinely want to know how you get on with this. Let us know, what movie or show did you choose for your clip? What part of the exercise felt the hardest? Was it the first listen without subs? Was it noticing the connected speech? Or maybe getting the shadowing to sound right? And did you pick up any new words or phrases, even from that tiny clip?
Yeah, share your experience. It helps everyone to see how others are applying these ideas. It's a great way to learn together.
So you've got the tools now to really leverage movies and TV. And these listening and pronunciation skills are foundational for so many other real-world English challenges, which brings us to what's coming up next.
Ah, yes, the dreaded phone call.
Exactly. Our next deep dive will focus specifically on handling phone calls in English, something our sources identify as particularly tricky for learners.
And it's obvious why, isn't it? All those visual cues we rely on in face-to-face conversation. Gone.
Completely gone. No facial expressions, no gestures, no body language. Sometimes you can't even rely on shared environmental context. It's purely auditory.
Which means those skills we've been talking about today, catching connected speech, understanding intonation, deciphering meaning just from sound, they become absolutely vital on the phone. Even more critical, perhaps.
Definitely. And if you misunderstand something, it can feel much harder to clarify without being able to point or use facial expressions to signal confusion. So our next session is all about building practical skills and confidence for exactly that situation.
We'll dive into things like how to start and end phone conversations naturally in English, useful phrases for common tasks, making appointments, asking for information, things like that, and crucially, strategies for what to say and do when you don't understand something over the phone, how to navigate those moments smoothly.
It's the perfect next step, really, taking the listening awareness you build from watching movies and applying it directly to that challenging audio-only context of a phone call. So definitely don't miss that one.
Make sure you're subscribed or following the deep dive so you catch that session on mastering English phone calls.
And just to wrap up today, remember that core idea from the sources. Learning English doesn't have to be a chore. It really can be enjoyable. Using methods like these, leveraging things you already like doing, watching shows, watching movies, but doing it actively and strategically. That's how you make progress feel fun and sustainable.
So go find that show, pick that 10-second clip, and start experimenting with these techniques. Turn your entertainment into real language skills. Enjoy it.
And maybe as you're doing that focused listening and shadowing, think about this. We talked a lot about decoding the words, the lyrics of the language, but how important is the music, the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation, the way sounds link and flow together? Isn't that musicality just as crucial for understanding fast speech and for sounding natural yourself?
Yeah.
Perhaps even more crucial than knowing every single word. Something to ponder as you practice.
That's a great final thought. Keep listening, keep practicing, keep imitating that music, and keep diving deep with us.
Until next time, happy watching and happy learning.